Welcome to this 26th video in our Gospel of Love series. I will be speaking about the qualities of the Supreme Lord and that we need to get to know Him so that we can love Him. We have already determined previously that we cannot really engage in God's service until we know who we are. The very beginning to engaging in God's service is knowing that you are not the body. In other words, your concept of God will not be true or real if you do not know your own spiritual nature. We have also established that one must hear and learn from a knower and lover of God in order to be able to come to know and love God again. Unfortunately, some teachers in the world have been teaching incorrect ideas about the character and qualities of the Supreme Lord. Their concept of God is basically a concept of their speculation. It is rooted in their minds. People have many important questions. Who is God? What does God look like? What is the spiritual world? And what is God's position in it? Kids ask these questions, but as they get older, they gradually learn not to ask these questions anymore because they know very well that their parents and their teachers don't have any clear answers. And this is a problem. When a person is supposedly worshiping God, but really what they are worshiping is their mental concept of God or their speculation of what God is. What is this called? Idol worship. It is a material creation. And then such a person worships that creation of their own mind, their speculation. God is spirit. God is invisible. God is void. God is an old man. This is called idol worship. It's very difficult to worship God and to love God if you do not know anything about Him. God is eternal. We are all eternal. Some people's idea is that God is the oldest, and so He has got this long white hair and a long white beard. And supposedly Jesus is telling us to love this entity when we don't have any higher information of what God is really like. Then we are left with our mental speculation. God does not have a material form that is controlled by the material laws of nature, but God has a spiritual form. And this spiritual form can be seen by those who have developed the spiritual vision to see Him. God therefore can be described by those who have seen Him, and God describes what He is like. The concept of God, where God is by Himself and is lonely, is a very limited concept of God. And so we sometimes hear things like, well, God out of His loneliness He created man. But in fact, even in their idea that God created man out of His loneliness, there is no real exchange of loving affections between God and the living entities. They are simply human beings having loving relationships with each other, and God more or less is alone and separate. He lives in His own room and is very lonely, and then kind of watches mankind enjoying themselves and have loving relationships with each other? No. Actually, God is always engaged in loving relationships with those who love Him. God is never alone. But we cannot figure out God by the strength of our minds. We need to learn about God from someone who knows and loves God. Only then can we know what God is really like.